Hello, welcome back to my Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 video series. Today's video is going to be a full flight in the Pilatus PC-12 NGX. We're going to be flying from Newcastle Airport to Manchester Airport, so it's going to be a short flight, but hopefully I'll have time in the whole flight to cover everything to do with flying the PC-12. So I'll just ensure that live weather, live traffic is on. All that's on. First thing we'll do is zoom into Newcastle, and we will select one of the parking spots. So we'll select this one here and set that as a departure. Next thing, I've already made a flight plan on SimBrief, so I'll load that up onto the screen now. You see the flight plan here. For how to make a flight plan on SimBrief, I have a video on that. I'll put that in the links above if you're wanting to know how to do that. So next, I will just go onto the flight planner on the EFB. I'm going to route, so I will put departure, which is EGNT, is Newcastle. Departing from runway 25. We are going to EGCC, which is Manchester, arriving at runway 23 right. So I can scroll down and double check that. Move this to the side. You can kind of see that here, 25 and 23 right. So I know my departure is the GIRL 3X, so I will change that procedure. And my arrival procedure is going to be the SETEL1M, which is this one here. Like that. We'll be doing an ILS into runway 23. That is all fine. I'm not going to put an alternate in. You can put an alternate if you would like. I'm going to add the en route waypoints, so you can see here we've got to the GIRLI waypoint. We'll be going onto the P18 airway, and that will take us to Gasco. There's Gasco. We'll add that, and I'll add DCT here means direct, so we're going direct to SETEL. I will add that, and that should then be our arrival. So here you can see the route. This is the departure to GIRLI. This is the airway to Gasco and to SETEL, and this is the arrival and then the approach. Back onto this. I will just hit file plan with ATC on that. I'm just going to go down, check these. Yeah, it's an IFR flight. Got our fuel and weight. We've actually got technically 2 passengers. Letting us change it though. I'm not sure why that is, but anyway. And then as we go down, we've got all our charts here. That's all set up. I will just show you in the aircraft and the flight performance in mass. So this is useful to take note of. This is 2,150 pounds of fuel, and we have 2 passengers. Technically the pilot doesn't count, but the co-pilot and the passenger does, and I've set them both to 180 pounds. I'll close this, and then I will double check it's loaded, which it looks like it definitely has. And I'll start the flight, and I'll see you once we have started the engines. Here we go, in the aircraft. I'm just going to do the quick startup with Control E. And I'll just make sure that the parking brake is engaged so it doesn't roll off. While it's loading everything up, I'm just going to tune to the ATIS to get the ATIS information.
Newcastle Airport Information Uniform 1300 Zulu. Wind 271 at 16. Visibility 6. Sky condition. Ceiling 1,900 foot overcast. Temperature 12. Dew point 11. QNH 101900. ILS runway 25 in use. Landing and departing runway 25. VFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact you have uniform.
Uniform, that's the important information from the ATIS.
Newcastle Airport Information Uniform.
Lets them know which one we have. And they're going to request the AFI clearance.
Newcastle ground, SCW-23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 231 4IFR to Manchester, ready to copy.
SCW-23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 is cleared to Manchester Airport by the Gulf India Romeo Lima Tree X-ray departure. Expect runway 25. Maintain 10,000 feet departure frequency is 119er. 875 squawk 0177.
Yep, so the important information, that was 10,000 feet. That's going to be probably our cruising altitude unless
to Manchester.
old different.
Gulf,
So
India,
we'll put the
Romeo
10,000 feet
Lima,
into the autopilot now.
Departure runway 25. Maintain 10,000 feet. Departure frequency is 119er. 875 squawk 0177 SCW-23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
SCW-23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 back correct. Contact ground on 121. 7 tree. Good day.
So now I know that when I want to taxi, I'm ready to do that. So now I'll set up the flight plan. So our origin is EGNT, so that's correct. I click this button so I can type with the keyboard. Our destination is going to be EGCC. Again, don't worry about the alternate. Our cruise speed, we'll change the initial flight level to 10,000. 230 knots is fine. Cruise FF, so this is the fuel flow for the cruise. This is somewhere on the flight plan if I remember correctly. Somewhere quite close to the top. Got an average pounds per hour here. And this is asking for pounds per hour, so I can put that in at 508. It's fine. We're going to fuel and weight. Again, verify that this is correct, which it is. We have 2 passengers at £180 each. We have no cargo. This should go back to flight plan, just insert this. Activate it. This hasn't changed. Should compute, and then it should give us a weight and an estimated time en route. From what I understand, again, 0 cargo. There we go. So we hit compute, computing the data, and then eventually I think it gives us estimates here. Then we'll go on to the SID, the standard instrument departure, from 25 GRL38X to GIRLI. Insert that, activate that, make sure it's white. The next thing is going to be the arrival and approach procedure, so we'll select that here. So it's the 23 right, ILS, and the STEIM. Insert and activate that. We'll just check this. It's 13 degrees, which we can find on the EFB at Manchester. To find this, you just go into your flight plan, click the I next to Manchester, and then click this I here. It opens up your general information for Manchester at the moment. You can see it's 13 degrees. The flight summary. And I'm going to scroll down here. There's a discontinuity here between the end of the SID. So I will click that on this and hit delete waypoint. Activate. I'll delete this discontinuity here as well. And activate. And scroll out and we can see that with just the approaches and stuff, we've got the flight plan in. Zoom in again. So I'll put the rest of the flight plan in, so I'll show it again on screen here. We are ATC flight plan, so from GIRLI we want to be in the P18. So to do this, hit this, we hit amend route, we hit join P18, and we're leaving it on Gasco. I'll insert that. We'll scroll down to Gasco, and at this point we're going direct to SETEL, which is already the next thing. We can just hit activate. Again, zoom out, and you can see it's added them 3 waypoints there for that actual airway. I'll double check all of this. Compute, hit activate. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. At this point we'll be flying vectors. It's got the correct altitude in for our cruising altitude, so we know all that's right. Click on this, hit fuel and weight. Nothing on that screen. Speed, distance and time. So at this point we could change the speed we want to be going at certain waypoints, but we don't need to. I'll put it back onto the route. And then just double check the cross screen. All good. Back onto flight plan on this. I will get my thruster. And at this point we're all ready for takeoff. So I'm going to request taxi to IFR. Reset the view.
SCW23 Charlie Charlie
Auto throttle will automatically climb at us 130 degrees. So I know that I just need to arm this for the takeoff and hit nav, and then it will follow the flight plan. I can do that now. It's armed here.
And hold short of runway 25 via taxiway Alpha 5 Delta 8 Delta Delta 7 Delta 6 Delta 5 Delta 4 Delta Tree Delta 1. Contact tower on 119er 705 when ready.
That's my taxi clearance, and contact the tower when I'm lined up.
Taxiing hold short runway 25 using taxiway Alpha 5 Delta 8 Delta Delta 7 Delta 6 Delta 5 Delta 4 Delta Tree Delta 1 SCW23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
Get that off screen for now. There we go. So disengage the parking brakes and turn. Plane, like I said in my previous video, it could literally spin on a dime, which is wonderful for a plane. You have to be very careful with your taxiing speeds. There we go, at the whole shot now. Long old taxiway at Newcastle. If you do fly this, you're just ready to expect that. I'm going to do Newcastle Tower. Request the takeoff clearance. I'm going to check we are ready for takeoff, so 1 notch of flaps.
Alpha 2314 ready for IFR departure runway 25.
SCW23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 QNH 1019er. Cleared for takeoff runway 25.
Acknowledge that. You can see here I've got the VNAV armed, I've got the flight level change armed, I've got the nav armed, so it will follow the flight path once the flight plan we've put in once we've taken off. There's the takeoff clearance, so disengage the auto brakes and line up with the runway. Check I'm not in the reverse thruster mode. Line up with the runway, just going to disengage the auto throttle. Reset the view, ready for takeoff, so full power. Station speed's about 80 knots. There we go, there's 80. Pull back on the stick, rotate. Positive rate of climb, so I'll pull up my landing gear. On the flaps, I'm just going to engage the autopilot there, so it will follow this heading. Engage the auto throttle. There you go, it's intercepted the flight path, so it will now climb us 130 knots. until we get to 10,000 feet. So we'll just follow the ATC instructions now. There we go. Acknowledge the handoff.
119er, 875 for SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
Doing the Scottish Centre and contact them.
Scottish Centre SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 is passing 2,400 feet, climbing 10,000 feet.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 Scottish Centre QNH 1019 radar contact. Continue to NTW02. SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 keep speed not above 250 knots.
So at this point they've told us a speed kind of
Ryanair 6629er descend.
constraint, so we know that we can't go above 250 knots. So what I would do now is I would go on to this view. I would hit the speed and distance.
And maintain FL
Pull in this one.
Ryanair 6629er.
I would just make sure that when I got to that, I'd manually set that to maybe 240 knots just to ensure that it doesn't go above it. And I acknowledge the speed constraint that they've given us.
250 knots SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 contact Manchester Center on 118 775. Good day.
Acknowledge that handoff. While we're doing these ATC calls, I'll just go through what I'm doing at this point. Basically, I'm set up to get to the cruise and to follow the flight path. Nav is armed, which is here. Autopilot is on with the yaw dampeners. It's in flight level change. It's climbing us at 140 knots. Doing that there. And the VNAV is armed, so when it's descending, it will automatically descend for us. When we get to the cruise is the kind of next point where we'll start setting up for any arrivals or approaches that we have. So I will get the video going. You can see here there's an automatic flight constraint here. So 8,000, so that will be on the flight plan. We're going to the cross. You have to be at 8,000 feet set knitted, which is what it's saying. The autopilot might get a bit buggy with this and try to tell you that you're below, but I prefer just to follow the flight plan. So you can see it's 8,000 feet at knitted, 8,000 feet at GIR LI. Just go across here. So these bars on either side mean you have to be at that altitude. So 8,000 at knitted, 8,000 GIR LI, and then we'll go up to 10,000, which is a cruise. Go back to this view, so we can start setting up for the arrival and approach at this point. I'll go back onto my flight plan, go onto my boards, I'll check the nav stars.
Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314. Please expedite your climb 10,000 feet.
Orders to expedite, so I'll turn this off and I'll hit flight level change. I was hoping. There you go. Hit flight level change, and it will climb us to 10,000 feet. So that's because we've got the we've got ATC's clearance to go to that altitude. Zoom in on the star here. You can see we should be at 3,400 feet between TILNI and Newcastle. So I'll just verify this on here. Pull this to the side. This is saying max 250 knots, so again I can check this on the speed and distance, check that there's nothing saying go faster than 250, which there isn't. All good there. And then I will check on the... hasn't actually given us the ILS for EGC, which is a bit strange. Right, SIDS, 23 on the left. Approaches, there we go. ILS DME for 23 right. So you want to be at or above 3,000 feet, 3,500 feet, which we can see it's already put in that constraint here for us. at above 3,500 until it takes us down to the runway. Rosson. I'm assuming Rosson is going to be on the arrival with this one. There we go, so flight level for Rosson, flight level 70, which is 7,000 feet, so it's automatically put all that information in for us. We've verified that the flight plan is correct. We'll go back onto the approach, onto the ILS. Zoom in here, go down, and we can see the minimums here is 450. I can set that using the autopilot buttons. I want to go minimums here. I just want to scroll it, and you can see it's setting on the barometer setting 450 feet. Or 50. So now we are verified and set up for the approach and the arrival. We're set up for cruise as well. We're at our cruising altitude. The autothrottle's on at 230 knots. We're all good now, basically, for the flight, which I am. That's kind of what I like to be when you get to your cruise. Make sure that you've got your minimum set. Make sure that your autothrottle set. Make sure it's following your flight plan. And the VNAV here to make sure that it descends when it needs to descend, and then you don't have to worry about panicking and doing all that and forgetting about it when you get to your kind of your approach and arrival. So now I will I'll speed up the video. I will probably go to the external view and just speed up the video through to when we next get an ATC call, and I will go back to normal speed when we get to that ATC call. So yeah, I'll speak to you all at that point. I'm just back here briefly. I've just checked the chart, and you can see there is a hold point at Rosson. I'm going to insert a hold at Rosson just in case we get told to hold there. To do this, you click on Rosson, and you would hit hold. Open up this box here. There we go. You can see the course is already set, so it's actually 171 in here. And then it's going to be a kind of a 1 minute or a 3 nautical mile leg distance, and the turn is always right, 150 knots, which is the speed that we would fly this at. I'm going to hit apply there and activate. Make sure not to hit activate vectors. And as you scroll out, you can see there it's inserted this hold at Rosson here in case we have to do that. If we don't have to do that, all I'm going to do is hit the activate vectors, and then that will allow us to vector into the final. So we'll see what the ATC says when we get to that point.
SCW-23, Charlie Alpha 2314, you are 48 miles north. Keep speed, not above 185, knots expect, RNAV runway, 2-3L approach via OSNAP transition. Clear to OSNAP.
So there we go, we've got our signage approach. It said keep speed not above 185, so the first thing I'll do,
not above 185. Knots expect
turn the speed down
runway,
185, so the autothrottle will then stick to 185.
Cleared to OSNAP SCW-23, Charlie Alpha 2314.
And we will edit our landing by going on to 23 left, ILS, here OSNAP, insert, then hit activate here, make sure not to hit activate vectors. They said we are clear to OSNAP, so I can hit OSNAP and press direct to. Again, hit activate. You can see it's changed the flight plan there to take us to the OSNAP transition. If I want to zoom in on a waypoint here, I can hit OSNAP and hit center on the map and zoom in, and that zooms us into OSNAP, so you can see it's going to take us towards that, turn us, line us up with kind of the final approach fixes. It's doing that here now. Go back to this view and ensure that it's not going above 185, which is the speed constraint we've been given. Check again, following nav, auto throttle on, VNAV mode is engaged. I'm going to hit on this screen, center aircraft. You see it's already calculated our top of descent, which is XTOD, so at this point it should start automatically descending us. Again, ATC is a bit buggy, it might shower us a bit for descending, but I'm going to say that we need to descend to 3,500 feet when the flight management system tells us to. Last thing I need to do, select the correct ILS approach. Is it the RMP for 23 left? There you go, RMP for 23 left. The OSNAP transition, although I'm not sure why it hasn't given us the TI-NVA transition, because that would make more sense. You can see here, this is basically the information they've just said. 185, or max 185 knots. I'm going to turn in here. And check this. So we are LNAV VNAV, so 680 for our minimums, so I will just change the minimums here. To this view, 680 for the minimums. Roll this knob. There's 680. There you go, down here on the display, 680 barometer for the minimum, so it should call that out for us. Tab on this.
Bluemax 6879er climb and maintain FL tree 60. SCW-23 Charlie Alpha 2 tree 14 descend and maintain 3,500 feet.
There you go, we've been told we can descend and maintain 3,500, so that acknowledges the instruction.
Descend and maintain 3,500 feet.
3,500
SCW-23
here in yellow.
Charlie Alpha
Hit the FLC button, then it will automatically manage the throttle to allow us to descend to that altitude. So it was a little bit before the calculate top of the descent, which is fine. It's when it gets a bit weird when it's asking to do it after. Normally at that point I'll just ignore the ATC, which isn't best practice, but you know, stops them giving you a really steep descent down to an altitude.
SCW-23 Charlie Alpha 2 tree 14U are 24 miles north of Manchester. Contact Manchester Tower on 118. 6 tree when inbound.
There we go. We've been given clearance for the approach.
Tower on 118. 6 tree SCW-23 Charlie Alpha 2 tree 14.
What we'll do now is tune the tower, ready to contact them when we're actually on the approach. At this point, I am just going to send the plane direct to this waypoint, so it gives us a bit of a smoother turn in. There we go. At the chart here, the initial approach fix is the 23LI, and then the final approach fix is 23LF. We're going to LI, which is the initial approach fix. Once we get close to that, we'll arm the approach mode, which will then hopefully arm the localizer and the glide slope and allow them to activate to give us a nice smooth approach into the runway. once they are armed, and I'm confirmed that they are armed up here, that's when I'll contact the tower to let them know that we're on the approach, because that's when I am comfortable to say we are ready to land the aircraft. Just descending through some thick fog in England at the moment. That view. You can see that even though I'm using flight level change, my VNav is still armed, so if it needed to take over, it would take over. There we go. Sending through now. Press B again, double check our altimeter is synced. I've set that command up, B for the altimeter. That is in your settings, controls on the keyboard is set altimeter B. Zoom in on the map a little bit. Yeah, just turning to 3,500, then we'll automatically level off. Okay, the auto throttle just spooling us up there, so I haven't had to stretch the throttle there at all. There we are. I'm just going to turn down the manual altitude to allow the VNav to take over when it needs to. See, it's dropping our speed to 150 now, so I know that it recognises we're on the approach. So at this point, because we are below this G number here, which is your gear speed, I'm going to drop the landing gear. There we go, confirm landing gear is down. Once we are stable with the landing gear down, we're below this 15, which is the 15 degrees of flap speed, so I'm going to drop down to 15 degrees flap. And then I'm going to arm the approach mode. It is not letting me do, which is a bit concerning.
Manchester Tower Ryanair, 411719 miles southeast inbound RNAV runway 2-Triel approach.
There we go, so it's let me arm the approach mode now after that turn, so I basically just kept pressing it until it let me.
Tower, QNH 1024, cleared RNAV runway 2-Triel approach.
Now that that's armed, I will contact the tower to let them know that I am on the approach.
Sunturk 5816 QNH 1024, cleared for takeoff runway 2-Triel.
Contact the tower.
Manchester Tower SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 231412 miles northeast inbound RNAV runway 2-Triel approach.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 Manchester Tower, QNH 1025, cleared RNAV runway 2-Triel approach.
There you go, cleared for the approach. I will acknowledge that.
Cleared RNAV runway 2-Triel approach SCW 23 Charlie
What I'm looking
Charlie
for at this
Alpha
point
2314.
is the vertical navigation and the vertical guidance to activate. You see the approach is activated, just waiting for this to come into green. And then I know it will automatically turn me down into the runway. There we go, so it's on the V path. Reset the view. I don't need to go any lower flaps than this. It's a long runway at Manchester, I don't need them flaps, and I've got the reverse thrusters to help me land. In my previous video, I mentioned about the autothrottle spooling up and down when you're doing the landings. You can hear it doing that now, so you can see I've got autothrottle selected. Trying to hold us at 110, and instead of just holding us at something, it's going up and then down and up and then down. So I am kind of testing it at this point to see if it does actually get us down to the ground for it.
Short runway 2, treat El Qatari 28.
If it starts being a bit weird when we're getting closer to the runway, I will just disengage the auto throttle and manually adjust the throttle to get us down. But we'll give it at least one chance to see if it does what it needs to do.
Manchester Tower, Ryanair 7545, 22 miles southeast inbound RNAV runway, 2 Triel approach. Ryanair 7545 Manchester Tower, QNH 1025, cleared RNAV runway 2 Triel approach. Cleared RNAV runway 2 Triel approach, Ryanair 7545.
A lot of planes coming into Manchester at this point. Christmas Eve, real life traffic. Again, we'll confirm now that we are completely set up. Gear is down, flaps at 15, auto throttle engaged, approach activated, and the VPAF is armed. Yaw dampeners are on, and it's in the VNAV profile. Reset the view. Just press B once more to ensure we're on the correct altimeter setting.
SCW-23, Charlie Alpha, 2 tree, 14 wind, 221 at 5. Cleared to land runway 2 Triel.
You go, final landing clearance, acknowledge that.
Cleared to land runway 2 tree LSCW-23 Charlie Alpha 2314.
Sunturk 5816, contact Manchester Center on 118775. Good day.
In the path lights here, it's actually got us a little bit below, so we're looking for 2 white, 2 red here. More red than white means you're below the glide path, more white than red means you are above the glide path.
118, 775, Sunturk 5816.
Just so I can see aim for 110 knots. And we're at barely any throttle. I'm just going to disengage the auto throttle at this point. There you go, so VGP, so it's on the glide path now. Just needs to go up a little bit. Re-engage the auto throttle. We're basically looking for minimums now to disengage the auto throttle on the autopilot, which is 680 feet. Currently at 1,100. We've got plenty of time. Hands are back on the controls. Minimize this window here. My mouse ready to disengage the auto throttle if it doesn't automatically do it when I disengage the autopilot.
Ryanair 4117, follow the aircraft on final. Wind 221 at 5. Cleared to land runway 2 Triel. Cleared to land runway 2 Triel. Ryanair 4117.
You can see that yellow marker here is where our minimums are. At this point I'm going to disengage the auto throttle. Disengage the autopilot and just hand fly this in, so coming over the runway threshold now, so I can throttle back to idle. Keep that centre line centred with us.
2109 are ready for departure runway 23
Turn the job off.
to De Gaulle.
As we get to about this point here, I just want to pull back very gently to let the aircraft just fall out the sky like that.
Hold short runway 23L.
We go, shouldn't need the reverse thrusters.
PC-12 on short final.
Let the aircraft coast along until we see a yellow line to taxi off the runway. I think at this point it's going to be for the very end of the
Short
runway.
runway 23L, easy 2109er.
I'm going to want us to do a U-turn on the runway because we've got aircraft coming in behind us. I'll roll out all the way to the end and look for a taxi line at the end. That's not what we want. Reverse thrust in just to allow us to slow down here. You can see a taxi line here.
Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 turn next
Brakes and
taxiway.
reverse thrust.
Ryanair 4117 contact ground on 121.
Go, follow this yellow line off the runway.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie
Then it's
Alpha
normal procedures. Stop at this hold short, contact ground and taxi.
855. Easy 2109er QNH 1025. Cleared for takeoff runway 23L.
And the camera here so you can see the aircraft taking off. Knowledge the ground heading off.
121, 855 SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
Tune the ground. And let's request taxi to parking.
Manchester ground SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 request taxi to parking.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway Whiskey Cross runway 05 or cross runway 05 or Victor Delta Victor Uniform Bravo Zulu cross runway 05 L Bravo Delta Quebec Echo.
Basically everything you just said was, scroll down, taxiway W,
Taxiing
so
to
follow this
general
round,
aviation parking via
cross the
taxiway
runway,
Whiskey Cross runway 05 or cross runway
down
05
VD,
or Victor Delta Victor Uniform Bravo Zulu cross runway 05 L Bravo Delta Quebec Echo SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314.
Victor Delta, Victor, Uniform. Victor, so that's the V. Uniform will be on here somewhere. U1. Be round with my mouse, I can guarantee you'll be shining at the screen saying it's here, but that's basically your taxiing. No harm in putting this on. Turning, I will speed up through the taxiing here until we get back to the gates, and then I'll do the outro for the video.
SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 hold position, caution other traffic. SCW 23 Charlie Charlie Alpha 2314 continue taxi.
Roger SCW 23
Hold
Charlie
position,
Charlie
some
Alpha
phantom traffic at that point.
2314.
But yeah, just getting to where our taxi point is. Again, another very, very long taxi. Guessing from all the people stood around here. This is where it's wanting us to go. I will stop here. Apply the parking brakes. Back into the aircraft. Get ready for shutdown, so turn the flight director off, turn the yaw dampeners off. I can turn the probes off. Ensure that flaps are up. Which they are. Turn the engine off. And turn all outside lights off. Landing light off. And the batteries, the generators off. And the AV bus off as well. There we go. So yeah, that was a full flight in the PC-12. I hope this video has been helpful. I will put timestamps in the bottom to allow people to skip kind of through the video to certain points. Any questions, drop them in the comments. And the next series I'm going to do is going to be on the Vision Jet V2. So I will I'll see you in them videos.